Hey, how's it going? If you're a new rifle shooter or a beginner rifle shooter and you're wondering how to hold your rifle in a ready position before an engagement or in between or even at the end, this video is for you. Hey, I'm Miles at Tactical Hyve, and today we're going to continue this how-to for beginners and new shooters regarding ready positions. So how to hold your rifle in a ready position. In a previous video, we talked about how to hold your pistol in a ready position. Now, this is not a grip video. This assumes you know how to grip. This is more about how to hold your rifle before you're shooting a target or a threat, in between, and even at the end. So first things first. We are not going to assume you're patrolling or you're just relaxing. You know, if you had a sling on, you could just let this hang if you were wearing a sling, so you don't have to worry about your rifle. This is, once again, you are about to engage or in between engagements. We aren't going to be relaxing here, where you're holding your rifle in a relaxed position, even if you had a sling or not, where you're walking around, as in the military they would call it patrolling. This is where we want to be ready for a threat. So we're going to discuss several common methods that you're going to see in the wild if you attend classes or you're watching different videos and things like that. So you'll have better knowledge as to what they're referring to. So the first ready position we're going to discuss is the low ready. And to get into this position, we're going to work backwards. So if you have never taken a class, don't worry too much about it. But if you have taken a class, then do what you've learned. And what I'm talking about here is get into a comfortable position as you were going to engage a threat or a target. So whatever is comfortable, wherever your sights are on, everything feels comfortable, you just feel good here. This is going to be your starting position, just to establish where your low ready is, okay? So whatever this position is, all you're going to do is bring that muzzle down while keeping the buttstock on your shoulder, wherever it is, okay? We're not discussing the technique here in terms of how to present, where to place your buttstock or anything like that. Right now, just learn what the low ready is, and later on you can add variations, adjust it, tweak it, all that stuff. So you present your gun out, and all you're going to do is lower the gun. Now, what I want you to do here is remember where this stock is, okay? That is the most important part right now, okay? Because that low ready position, if your spidey senses were tingling and something was happening, and you wanted to start from the low ready, you would put that buttstock where that reference point is. So this would be the start. So now, if the threat came out or you wanted to engage, now you would just raise up the gun, and you already know it's going to be lined up with where you originally started from. When we started, we were working backwards, okay? So the low ready, you're gonna remember that position of that stock where your shoulder is and the gun is down. So it's a safe direction here, okay? It's pointed downwards, and when you're ready to engage, you can bring it up, okay? That is the low ready. The low ready has some advantages and disadvantages, and this video is not going to dive into all of them, but I'll give you some of the things that you're going to commonly hear. Before I get into them though, just like the pistol ready positions, how to hold your pistol in a ready position, you're going to hear endless debate among all of the ready positions, even with rifles. And it's because a lot of people, they kind of fall into it has to be either or, this technique or no technique at all, where when you do this long enough and you talk to a lot of people, it becomes situational dependent. So take it for what it's worth, these pros and cons, do more research, whatever you want to, but at the end of the day, you're probably going to also realize that it's going to be dictated by the situation. So the low ready here, okay, one of the advantages here is that if I am in close quarters, right, and I need to, just like the low ready we discussed in the pistol video, if I'm in close quarters, this potentially can get stuffed. So if someone came out, they could stuff my rifle and I'm not in the fight. Now there are some rebuttals against that. Like, there are some techniques that one could possibly use, but again, this is not that video, okay? But that is a major disadvantage that people talk about here. This gun is going to get stuffed. Another disadvantage with the low ready is look where the muzzle is pointing. If you are in a high rise or a building where there's another floor, just like a pistol, if the pistol is pointing down, you could shoot through the floor and potentially hit somebody. But with all ready positions, there is always going to be that potential if you're in a high rise or a building with people above you or below you. So just keep that in mind. It should be pretty much common sense. A big advantage of the low ready is you already have your buttstock in the proper place. So if you want to engage someone, it's going to be faster here because you don't have to worry about whether your gun is going to be lined up. If you practice your presentation a lot, all you got to do is bring that gun up, the rifle up, and you should be lined up to be able to take shots. So in general, one of the advantages that people talk about is that it is faster. The next ready position is referred to as the high ready. Okay? And there are variations of this. This is basically where you're going to kind of be in a fighting stance, very similar to the pistol version where that gun was up kind of in front of your workspace here. And with this high ready, typically, okay, it depends on the barrel length. Typically, you want to still be able to see everything in front of you. You don't want to cover your vision with this barrel here, right? So if you have, depending on your body size and the mechanics here, you could ideally, again, want to be able to see so that muzzle is going to be lined up with your eyes. And there are ways around this where if you have a really big gun, potentially you can turn this way, bring that elbow out so you're turned. So variations, guys, right? But the idea here is I'm in this ready position, which is more similar to a fighting position with my arms, and I can, and one of the advantages, I can use this to strike if I needed to, okay? Instead of taking a shot. So if someone comes out of nowhere, I can strike them. If they're not a threat and I don't need to engage, you can do that, right? Another advantage is the idea that in close quarters, unlike the low ready where you could potentially get stuffed, here I can bring that gun in, again, strike if I need to, but it's a more secure position where someone is not necessarily going to be able to stuff my gun or take the gun away from me. So that's something that you're commonly going to hear people who are proponents of the high ready talk about, another advantage there. A disadvantage is very similar to pointing the muzzle down. You could potentially shoot someone up, so we don't have to go into that too deeply. It's common sense, right? But one of the things that when we talk about speed here is compared to the low ready, with the high ready, my gun is not established yet. The buttstock is not on my shoulder yet. So I will need to push out and then establish that. So that basically means it's going to take a little bit longer than the low ready. So you do see there are pros and cons to each ready position there. But the idea is that each one will have a certain situation where it will be better than the other. Before we move on from the high ready, just to point out some things here, the high ready position, both of my arms are bent, kind of that natural fighting stance. Once again, I want to have, ideally, that muzzle kind of in line with my eyes where I can still see. The buttstock is going to be by my arm. Notice this right here, it's by my arm here. It's not necessarily like this, okay? Not like this. And when you look at competition shooters, they'll have it like this. The typical high ready that you'll see a lot of people do in the kind of the tactical world is more this way. It's either straight with this touching here or kind of curved, all right? So keep that in mind when you're establishing your high ready position. A third ready position that you might see and people refer to is kind of a hybrid. Now, there isn't a universal name for this because I've heard different people call it different things. For example, I've heard people in certain military units call it the high ready, which is very different, right? We just discussed the high ready, but you'll hear some people talk about this as a high ready. Now notice this looks like the low ready, right? Instead, the low ready was down here, but now I can present, and now I'm just going to bring my gun down, my rifle down a little bit lower so I can see over the top of my sights, but I'm still in a ready position. So it's not the low ready where my muzzle is completely in a safe direction. Here, let's say if you were my threat here, okay, now I'm pointing at you, ready to shoot. Here, I'm looking over my sights. So I can still shoot, okay, if need be. This is more, I guess you might even say this is more of an offensive ready position because your muzzle is pointed down range at a potential threat. But you're still able to see more. You can see more instead of, you're not looking through your sights here, okay? You're looking over the top so you can have better vision, right? That is, again, sometimes referred to as the high ready, but we already discussed it's just going to be depending on who you're talking to. So that's going to be important. If you watched one of our videos before, a lot of disagreements in the industry, they stem from people talking about different things or talking about the same thing, but maybe using different terms or vice versa. So that's something to keep in mind when you're talking about people. This can also be referred to as high ready, okay? We already talked about this is traditionally what people refer to as high ready, but you might hear other things. And just quickly, with that, I'm gonna call it a modified high ready, okay? With that modified high ready, Advantage, you're ready to shoot, right? You have vision, your muzzle's pointed down range, you're ready to engage if need be. You just have to lift it up very quickly. A disadvantage, your muzzle's already pointing down range, right? So if a non-threat pops out, you could potentially shoot them, have an accidental discharge, okay? I'm going to just briefly discuss a fourth ready position that I'm not going to dive into deeply because this is a beginner video, something for new shooters to a rifle. And the fourth variation is something that's more advanced and used in close quarters. Let's say CQB environments, in the military clearing a room, law enforcement clearing a room, and that is over the shoulder retention or the over the shoulder ready position. This is something that you're not going to see at classes where someone's engaging targets and then right at the end they're going to do something like this. This is used in close quarters where you're clearing a building and you're in tight spaces because it's easily maneuverable. You can move this rifle in and out of doors, you can punch it in, punch it out, keep it close to your body, and it's more secure. Right, so just keep that in mind. You might see people do that, but once again, this video is just to give you the three major variations that you'll see as a beginner or as a new shooter to a rifle. So I hope that video helps you out. You now have a better idea of what to do with your rifle, how to hold it before an engagement, in between engagements, and even after engagement. If you like the content, please like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.